I'm your host, Chelsea, and this is Midwest Fright. Hey guys, it's Wicked Wednesday, and you know what that means. I have some Reddit short spooky stories ready for you. This may be short and sweet. I don't know yet. I might add some more in later. I found a few. So far, I think I have like 12 or 13. So we might make this like a lucky 14. I don't know. We'll just find out. So are you guys ready to jump in? Let's go. I wanted to find some Valentine's Day ones, some love ones, just in honor of what's coming up this week because we got Valentine's Day. Some of these I did read ahead because last week I didn't read any of them and I was kind of shocked by a few. So, all right. So we know the routine. I'm going to say the author's name and then basically the title and get into the story. So let's go. Number 1. This is by Scream Notes. It's titled, "This Fortune Teller Was Keeping a Secret." It was kind of a coincidence. My friend Gwen had mentioned that she wanted to see a psychic, and around the same time, my tattoo artist, Angela, recommended that I go see this woman who can see the future. We went one day that winter, maybe around Valentine's Day, to see this psychic at her shop. She greeted us and introduced herself as Madame Sophia. She explained the way her process worked because it was a little unusual. She did not read palms. Instead, she would hold your hand in her right hand and a pen in her left. Then she would close her eyes and concentrate, allowing her body to become a conduit for future events. In this state, she would channel knowledge of your future through her body and to her left hand, which would then jot the fortune onto a scrap of paper. Gwen went first, and it all happened as Madame Sophia described. At the end, Gwen eagerly snatched the scrap paper out of her hand. I winced. Angela had warned me that Madame Sophia had a temper. Maybe I should have warned Gwen, but Madame Sophia didn't seem to mind. Instead, she beckoned for me to come sit. I rolled up my sleeves and sat down at the table, extending my right hand out. Then I looked up and made eye contact with Madame Sophia, and immediately I knew there was something wrong. Her face was wrinkled with an expression of a disgust. In a sudden outburst, she began yelling. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she demanded I leave immediately. Gwen and I left, confused as to what we had done wrong. 2 weeks later, I was coming out of a bookstore in town, and I saw Madame Sophia on a street corner. I wasn't going to say anything, but then she happened to look right at me, so I waved. She turned immediately and headed off in the other direction. But I saw that her wallet had fallen out of her bag. Instinctively, I picked it up and followed her. I yelled at her that she had dropped her wallet, but she must have been ignoring me. She glanced over her shoulder at me as she sped along. I screamed. Madame Sophia walked into the path of an oncoming truck. They say she died instantly. Shocked by what had happened, I looked down and saw a scrap of paper sticking out of the wallet. I pulled it out. It said, "Beware the mark of the coyote. It will show itself before it hunts you." There were dozens of scrap papers inside with the same message written on them in the same handwriting. I looked down at my right arm at my newest tattoo from Angela, a silhouette of a howling coyote. I looked back at the word on the scrap of paper, and then I looked up and saw that the stop truck had been sent by a logistics company of the same name. Oh, so I guess the trucking company was like Coyote, and this lady thought that it was going to be this girl, like That was going to kill her. Oh, that's some Final Destination shit right there. Okay. That was pretty nice. Number 2. This is by Baby Blue 47. It's titled Secret Admirer. I got out of my bed and sat there for a moment contemplating my life. Today is February 1st, and it was almost Valentine's Day. Still with no one to share it with. Maybe I was meant to be alone. I opened my front porch to fetch the newspaper. What is this? I picked up a yellow envelope that was sitting on my mat. I opened it, and inside was a letter addressed to me. Dear Kobe, I have a confession to make. I have loved you since the first day I laid eyes on you. I can't tell you who this is, but in time you will know. Look out for more letters. P.S. Will you be my Valentine? Love, Secret Admirer. I couldn't believe it. I have a secret admirer? Maybe things will look up for me. The letter wasn't lying. Every day I have received letters after letters. I think I'm falling in love. Today is February 14th, and for the first time in my life, I was happy. I picked up the last letter and ripped it open. A piece of my favorite chocolate appeared inside. How did they know? I plopped it in my mouth and unfolded the letter. Dear Kobe, I will finally tell you who I am. I know this will be hard to understand, but I am you, and you are me. I wanted you to feel loved and special for once. P.S. That chocolate you just ate? Well, there's poison in it. I know you were too much a coward to do it yourself, so I did it for you. Love, one of your many personalities. Someone commented, Colby 2012, never forget. Yeah, that's why you read the letter first before you eat the chocolates or eat any kind of candy. Dude, I don't eat food from strangers. Like, that's still a thing, right? Number 3, this is by Their Juices. It's titled, Cupid is a Little Bitch. You got that right. When I was 7, Cupid stole my dignity. I'd spent the first 2 weeks carefully cutting out and gluing together the perfect Valentine's Day card for the most perfect girl in class. The day finally came, and I sat patiently waiting at my desk for the better part of the morning, waiting for the right time to strike. Finally, a moment came where she was alone, breaking off from her friends to grab some candy from her desk. I walked up to her shyly, the card crinkling in my sweaty little palms, and thrust it out towards her. Needless to say, it did not go well. When I was 18, Cupid stole my girlfriend. I had the perfect Valentine's Day planned for us both. 24 hours jam-packed with chocolates, flowers, and extravagant dinners. It all fell apart when I walked in on her and another man while delivering a surprise breakfast in bed. That year was a double whammy too, seeing as I lost my best friend as well. When I was 25, Cupid stole my job. I was the top candidate for a promotion. My boss loved me, and things were finally looking up. The moment the clock ticked over to February 14th, our stocks plummeted. At 33, Cupid stole my car. At 42, Cupid stole my dog. Last year, Cupid stole my wife. This year, Cupid's not going to get me. This year, I'm stealing from Cupid. I'm focusing on sharing my positive thoughts instead of being held captive by my negative ones. I aim to spread the holiday spirit. I handed out little candy hearts to every couple I passed today. 1 pink, 1 yellow to each pair. I walked as they giggled and swooned, synchronous together, biting into their respective hearts, if I can fucking say words. All it took was a few drops of cyanide in each pink heart. And now the one stealing the love this year is me. That's kind of shitty, okay? Damn. What the fuck? And I think the moral of this episode will be don't take candy from strangers. And if you do, don't eat it. Number 4. This is by I Redefine Sin. It's called I Don't Like Valentine's Day. I have never really been a fan of Valentine's Day. Not even when I was a teenager and expected big romantic gestures from the guys I was dating. So when I noticed all the little balloons and roses and chocolates he left in the room for me, it takes me a while to completely process everything. He wasn't extremely popular in high school, not one of those guys who had girls clinging to him all the time. So he always makes a big deal out of Valentine's Day. So even though I protested the first few years, over time, I have learned to just take what he gives with a smile on my face because I don't want to upset him. I reach out to pull the card closest to me when I hear footsteps outside the door. On the inside of the card, he has scribbled a note. I just wanted to make up for all the time we've spent apart. I keep pretending to read it as he opens the door. I see you've found your presents, he says as he walks towards me. I give him a small smile. He walks up to me and starts unlocking the chains at my feet. I just want to make you feel special. I love you, you know, he says as he pulls at the hem of my skirt. I just nod my head and smile. Like I said, I don't want to upset him. Not on Valentine's Day. Ooh, that was dark. Sometimes, especially reading these, it was funny that I wasn't the only one. A lot of the commenters were like, I forget which Reddit I'm on, and it's the scary stories. Because some of these you're like, oh, this is going to be nice. And no, there's a dark turn. Number 5. This is by either Aspiring Cadaver or, it's called Aspiring Cadaver. This is called First Love. She used to work at the liquor store where I bought my whiskey and lottery tickets. She was young, like I was then, short and pale with mousy brown hair. She was no extraordinary beauty, but she smiled at me. She was perhaps the only one who smiled at me in those lonely months. That was something. Aren't you a millionaire yet? She asked me. Once I made my purchases, I thought she was making fun of me, but she smiled. Afraid not, I said. What would you do with all that money if you won? I really don't know, I said. What about you? I'd buy an island, she said, staring off the distance, far away from here. That was something else. That was what got me thinking about her late at night as I sat in my armchair, drinking and trying to forget. I like to think about things far removed from reality then. After a while, she called me by name. She laughed at all my jokes and about her island. That December, I bought her a Christmas present. I had nobody else to buy for after all. It was a book, Lord of the Flies. It was the only one I could think of that's about an island, I told her. Only good one anyway. She laughed. You're something else, she said. Her laughter was musical. It stuck in my brain like a bad song, transformed my armchair fantasies into a sick, dull ache in my chest, a trembling thing, desperate to be relieved. Recently, I learned that there are tiny, uninhabited islands a few miles off the coast of a neighboring state. They are nameless and little known. You can take a boat there if you've got one. I do. I made a trial run last week. Little black crabs skitter along the mangroves and gulls and seagulls fly overhead. The waves lap against the golden, rock-littered sand, uninterrupted by human conversation. After all, it was cold that February. I told her all about it. Uninhabited, she said. That's my kind of island. I imagined her eyes reflecting the sea, her teeth flashing in the sun as she laughed. It was intoxicating. The reality was sobering. The tears in her eyes reflected the sea. Her teeth flashed in the sun as she cried out for release. I asked her why she smiled at me the way she did, why she stoked those glowing embers. I was just being friendly, she choked, her voice dying behind the crashing waves, her hysteria buried in the silent power afforded by my vessel. So I left her there, hobbled by injuries from fleeing barefoot over the mangrove roots and rock. Figured she might feel differently about my company in a couple days. After all, it was cold that February, but a few cold, hungry nights on the lonely shore didn't warm her heart towards me. Then I discovered the caves. That changed everything. She was only the first. Okay, I used to work at a convenience store, and what the fuck? What's crazy though is that this shit's like, this isn't real, but like, that is kind of real. I mean, people do that. If you're nice to someone, there are certain crazy people out there who like obsess over it. And it's like, no, like I'm just being a decent human, like what we all should be. Oh, someone commented, if at first you don't succeed, dump a bunch of pretty girls on an island until one of them gets Stockholm Syndrome. Sure thing, bud. Sure thing. Number 6. This is by Writing is Fun, But You Suck. It's called Love is a Dangerous Game. Every time he slept with a girl, she died. It started with his high school girlfriend, Elena. She jumped off a bridge on prom night. His first college girlfriend, Marie, electrocuted herself in the bath. When Anna died in a one-car crash a week after they first slept together, he realized what was going on. He was cursed. His love was deadly. The timing between the deaths and the consummation of their relationship was too perfect. He gave up dating. Sure, it was a lonely life, but how could anything else be fair? Eventually, though, he grew bitter. As he found himself in his 30s, his conviction in the reality of the curse he waned. People died all the time. It was obviously just bad luck. Coincidences were real, curses weren't. And so he started to date again. Cindy was her name, and they had 3 wonderful dates. On the night of their 4th, he showed up at her apartment building. There were flashing police lights outside, and they weren't letting anybody in. Cindy had been found mutilated beyond recognition. As the new boyfriend, he became the obvious suspect. Unfortunately, his fingerprints were all over the knife that had been used. Of course they were. He had just had dinner at Cindy's a few days before the murder, and he was convicted of the crime. He served a few years until a major fuck-up that had been committed by the prosecution during his trial came to light, and he was released on a technicality. At that point, with years of his life stolen from him, he grew angry and selfish. He was going to live the way he wanted and was willing to risk a woman's life for his own needs. There was still enough humanity inside of him to not take this risk without being upfront about it. Though, and I just messed up. Anyway, so he made an online dating profile with his curse laid out in the description. Most people who saw it just assumed that he was crazy. One day, though, a woman named Michelle responded. She was cursed too, she said. Every man she had ever slept with died shortly thereafter as well. She figured they were a match made in heaven. Being on the other side of the equation made the concept seem ridiculous to him. Despite the years of evidence of his own curse, it just sounded crazy coming out of someone else's mouth. Fuck it, he thought. He was lonely, lonelier than he thought was possible. If she was some crazy person that was going to stab him or something, he didn't care. And so they agreed to meet up. Their night together was wonderful. The next morning, they were found, still twisted together in bed. The cops had never seen anything like it. Two 40-somethings, perfectly healthy by all accounts, both dead of natural causes. On each of their faces were contented smiles, smiles that would last forever. Aw, they found true love. That was so sweet. Awkward. Someone commented, my paranoia says no, but the depression says yes. I mean, it was a kind of a sweet story, besides the fact that he did kind of go on a killing spree in a way. Sorry if you guys can hear my cats because they're deprived of attention, apparently. All right, number 7. This is by C. Benson, 1273. It's called My Wife Said I Wasn't Romantic Enough, so I pulled out all the stops for our anniversary. Hi, honey, are you ready? Ready for what? My wife asked, confused. For our anniversary celebration, I replied. You did remember our anniversary, didn't you? Of course I did, she replied awkwardly. I just didn't realize you'd made dinner plans. Is that all right if we skip them tonight? I'm just really tired. And leave you to a boring night in? Absolutely not. I know how much you love romance, and tonight I went all out. So put on your favorite dress and let's paint the town red. Jane didn't seem excited, but with some prodding, she eventually got ready. Soon we were out of the door. What's this? She asked, staring at what sat in the parking garage. This is our limo for tonight. No boring Toyota for us. I told you, I went all out. Our chauffeur opened the door for us and then drove us downtown. After about 15 minutes, we pulled up outside an ornate building. First stop, the theater. I took her inside and presented our tickets. When she realized what we were seeing, her eyes widened. The Marriage of Figaro? She gasped. This is my favorite opera. Hopefully I said that right. I know, I replied, smiling. We were seated as the curtain rose. She laughed throughout, teared up occasionally, and by the end was the happiest I'd seen her in months. That was wonderful, she exclaimed. And the night's not over yet, I replied. We re-entered the limo and we were soon at the city's best Italian restaurant. I love this place, she declared excitingly. That's why we're here, I responded. Inside, we were seated at a romantic table for two. The staff went all out. Roses and wine on the table, outstanding service, typically excellent food. How are you enjoying the evening so far? I asked. It's been amazing. I can't believe you planned all of this. I wanted you to have a night to remember. Speaking of which, I said, handing her the box I'd been hiding. She took it, looking at me curiously. What's this? It's a surprise. She opened the box and her eyes went wide. I saw the snakeskin purse you were admiring last month, and I made a mental note. This isn't exactly the same one. I had it made custom, especially for you. It's gorgeous, she said breathlessly. What snake is it made from? Well, I thought about using a cobra or python, but then I saw a strange number on your phone last week and decided to follow you. Her face froze. I learned all about Jacob, the coworker you've been fucking behind my back. So I visited him saying I wanted to talk, and he believed me. At that point, she looked down at the purse. John, she asked nervously. Yes, dear. What's this mark on the purse? Don't you recognize the tattoo? I thought having it show might make the gift more special. I know you were hoping for snake skin, but I thought Jake skin might even be more memorable. Happy anniversary, dear. Oh, shit. I got no words for that. Damn. So, beside the fact that if you are in a rough patch in your relationship, okay, don't cheat, because then this might happen to you. Take mental note. All right, number 8. This is by Forgotten Well, titled My Husband Has Multiple Personality Disorder. I'm falling in love with his alter ego. Years ago, on our very first date, my husband, Fred, told me about his condition. He told me about Ronnie. At the time, I thought multiple personalities was something you only saw in the movies, but I learned that wasn't the case. It didn't stop me from marrying my husband, but now, years later, there's a problem I didn't anticipate. Hello, my beautiful wife. I think I'm starting to fall for Ronnie. How's your day at work? Do you need a margarita, a foot massage? What if I make dinner? Are you hungry? Just say what you're craving and I'll whip it up. It's a complicated situation. I mean, technically, they're both my husband, right? So why do I feel so guilty about preferring Ronnie? My husband, Fred, is fine. He does the dishes and takes out the trash without me having to ask, but he's also boring. He's a good husband, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I feel like maybe he could do more. Ronnie is like a golden retriever who has been cooped up in his kennel too long. Boundless energy, a constant smile, and a willingness to go above and beyond to meet my needs. Last week, Ronnie took me to the movie and then came home and made pasta from scratch. We split a bottle of wine and danced to an old Backstreet Boys CD. He's got passion. The whole situation has had my head scrambling. How can it be that I'm falling out of love with my husband and am falling in love with my husband? I decided I would be an adult and communicate with my husband about it. I came home from work early so that I can confront him with these feelings, only he was nowhere to be found. When I went to the basement, I heard something, a conversation. It was coming from behind a bookshelf. I'm so sorry, you guys, if you can hear my cats. It was quiet at first, but the closer I got, the more I could hear. I love her. I want to go out more often. I won't allow it. This is for your own good. Oh my God. My husband was having a conversation with his alter ego. I put my ear right up to the bookshelf and heard a terrible scream. Holy shit. I tried to push the bookshelf out of the way, but it wouldn't budge. That's when my eye was drawn to a red, hardcore book, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I pulled the book, and the bookshelf rolled out of the way on its own, revealing a door. I swung open the door, and inside was an all-white padded room, like you might see in a mental hospital. My husband was kneeling there over a bloody body, who was also my husband. My beautiful wife, Ronnie said, smiling with unhinged eyes. Now we can be together all the time. Twins, I thought, terrified at the bloody sight. My husband was an identical twin. Oh, that was really good. Good old twist. Hey, real quick, so sorry if you guys can hear my cats. I have to record without them because they like to climb on things and they get up in your face. And I promise you, my cats are loved. They just want attention right now. But yeah, that was really good. I think that's crazy. I know there's a couple. Dude, there's a movie. There's a movie, maybe with Sarah Michelle Gellar, or is it a show where she has like a twin? I'll have to look it up. Anyway, what do you guys think about that one? Number 9, Would You Still Love Me? And this is by Meandering Crafting. I think so. Anyway, so it's called Would You Still Love Me? Would you still love me if I turned into a worm? Of course I would, sweetie. Sheila was in one of her moods, wanting something from me. Comfort? Reassurance? I'll be honest, I was barely listening, but I know my cue when I hear the words, would you still love me? I just feel like we haven't been connecting lately. I held her hand with my right hand while scrolling on my phone with my left. There was a new superhero movie coming out soon. Maybe my buddy from work would want to go. Yeah? We should try a new project together. What would you think about gardening? Maybe a few flowers in the backyard? Whatever you say. I wasn't sure why I had to be involved. It's not like Sheila had a hard time occupying herself, always reading those old books and drawing diagrams. Whatever new thing she wanted to try would fizzle out eventually. I waited a moment for a good time to talk. She was saying something about nutrients. Once she started babbling on her tangents, I had a hard time focusing. I'm kind of tired. How about we turn the lights off? Oh, sure. I kissed her goodnight and rolled over to sleep. I felt weird when I woke up the next morning. I'd had strange dreams, and I was thirsty. So incredibly thirsty. I flopped over and opened my eyes to an alien world. I was lying on a soft surface. It was much too big. It was the size of a football field and colored exactly the same shade as gray as my bed sheets. Was I still in bed? There was a box that looked like my dresser, but it was too far away. I couldn't think. I was just so thirsty. A firm but gentle pressure gripped my waist, and the soft surface fell away from me. I closed my eyes as the horrible approximation of my bedroom spun around me. I landed into something cool. I wriggled around in my satisfaction. My thirst had gone away. I could think clearly again, which only made me more aware of the fact that something had gone terribly wrong. Would you still love me? The words popped into my head. Last night, I'd said yes without thinking. I focused on the memory, concentrating until the full sentence filled my brain. Would you still love me if I turned you into a worm? I looked up. Sheila's face took up the entire field of vision. Maybe she was a giant, but I knew I wasn't so lucky. Sorry about the rough morning, honey, she said. If I knew the transformation was that quick, I'd have had the dirt ready sooner. Don't worry, I'll keep it nice and damp for you. I've been reading that earthworms are good for soil health. What do you think of tulips? Damn. So, moral of that story is pay attention to your spouse when they're talking, because they might turn you into a fucking worm. All right, this is number 10 by Espooky, and it's titled Love Language. I've always cared deeply about others. That's the way my mom raised me. If you really loved your mama, she said, you'll fetch a nice plate of sausage casserole. Every day I would bring a freshly prepared meal for her. In the darkness of her room, I could still see her feeble smirk while testing my newest creation. Even though her hands were shaking and she could barely sit up to eat, Mom always devoured the food with such exquisite delight. After she passed on, cooking became my love language. I would cook for anyone, anytime. It was a way of proving my worth of being useful. Now I barely do any cooking. Above all, I supervise and train the inmates who assist with meal preparation. I'm also in charge of sanitation duties, food supply storage, and occasional kitchen incident reports. Every once in a while, however, I get the chance to earn my stripes. Most inmates will choose something familiar: a chicken salad, bacon and eggs, a juicy steak. This makes sense to me. Why would anybody risk not enjoying their last meal? Home is where the stomach is. Occasionally, though some will ask for a more exotic dish, contrary to popular belief, prisons are not required to fulfill all petitions. Unusual ingredients might be replaced with available substitutes, alcohol is forbidden, and expensive requests are denied. Lawrence, the warden, told me once he paid the extra cost of one meal, even joining the inmate for dinner. In the end, we're all human and equal in the eyes of God. Right he was. When they called me to death row, I knew that was my chance to do something of value for humanity. I don't think we can manage, scoffed Lawrence, as he chuckled in discomfort. Just give him a cheeseburger or something. How disappointing. I was willing to walk the extra mile. That much I wanted to show my love for my fellow men. This was my mother's lesson. Albert Clark, sentenced to capital punishment after the abduction and murder of his ex-wife. The body was found buried on his backyard, missing several chunks of flesh. He walked down the hallway and towards the chamber. He saw me from the distance. We exchanged a heartfelt smile. My purpose was accomplished. "What happened to your arm, ma'am?" asked the officer, a worried look on his face. "Oh, nothing serious. I just cut myself while I was cooking is all." "Oh, so was this Albert Clark supposed to be like an Albert Fish, like a Hannibal Lecter?" And she just said, "Cool, we're gonna slice off a piece of that fatty arm tissue and serve it on a platter." What the fuck? Number 11. This is by that Gripsy, who I think on the last episode I had a couple of their stories as well. This is called "My Husband Loves Me More Than Life Itself. I know this because he won't let me die." I should be dead. The car crash was violent. I remember the impact, the shattering glass, the taste of blood in my mouth. I remember my body breaking, the cold creeping in as I bled out on the pavement. I remember his voice, screaming my name over and over again. And then I woke up. Not in a hospital, at home, in our bed, in the same silk nightgown I wore the night before the accident. I sat up too fast. My head swam. Something was wrong. He rushed into the room before I could call for him. "Baby," he whispered, kneeling by the bed, his eyes raw from crying. "You're awake." I tried to remember the crash, the paramedics, the hospital, but there was nothing. Just the accident. Then this. "What happened?" My voice came out weak. He cupped my face. "It's okay now. You're safe. You're home." His hands were trembling. That's when I saw the needle marks on my arms. Dozens of them. "What did you do?" My voice cracked. He kissed my forehead. "I saved you. I don't know how long I've been here. The windows are locked, the doors too. There are no phones in the house, no way to call for help. He brings me food, bathes me, brushes my hair. He tells me I almost died, that the doctors gave up, but he wouldn't let me go. You're my wife, he whispered every night as I pretend to sleep. You don't get to leave me. At first, I fought. I screamed, begged him to take me to a hospital, to let me see my family. He never got angry, never raised his voice. He just smiled and said, "They think you're dead, baby. Why would I take you back to a world that buried you?" I stopped fighting after that. Something's wrong with me. I don't feel pain anymore. I don't feel hungry. I don't feel tired. My heartbeat is slow, too slow. And last night, when I pressed a blade to my wrist just to see, there was no blood. But the worst part, this morning, I finally saw what was behind the locked basement door. An operating table, IV bags, a defibrillator, and in the farthest corner, a freezer filled with empty body bags, or a freezer filled with empty blood bags, my blood. Tonight I will try again, not to escape, not to fight, to die. I know he'll stop me. He always does. But I have to try. But whatever I am now, it isn't living. Ooh, that would actually make a really good movie. Even like a TV series, possibly, like HBO Max or something. That was good. Okay. All right. This is going to be our final one. This is number 12. It is by Grip C again. And it is titled, "My wife and I played rock, paper, scissors to decide who would die first. I let her win." It started as a joke, one of those morbid little games we played at night when life felt too big, too uncertain. "When we get old," she'd say, "I don't want to be alone." "Me neither," I replied. So we made a pact. No hospitals, no nursing homes, no suffering. When the time came, we'd play one final game of rock, paper, scissors. Best 2 out of 3, the loser would go first. We laughed about it back then. We never thought that we'd actually have to do it. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 4, no treatment, no miracle, just months, maybe weeks. We sat in silence for a long time after the doctor left. Then she reached for my hand. "Best 2 out of 3?" she whispered, forcing a smile. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to rage at the universe for taking her from me. Instead, I nodded. We counted together. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. She threw paper, I threw rock. 1 point for her. Again. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. She threw scissors, I threw paper. 2 points. She won. I let her. She laughed, weakly pressing her forehead to mine. "Guess you're stuck with me a little longer." That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathe, memorizing the sound, the way her chest rose and fell, the warmth of her body against mine. By morning, she was gone. I should have felt relieved. No more suffering, no more pain. Instead, I felt hollow. I tried to move on, I really did, but everywhere I went, I felt her absence like a phantom limb. Then the notes started appearing. Small, handwritten messages left in places only she would know. "One more round?" Taped to the bathroom mirror. "Double or nothing?" scrawled on a receipt in my pocket. Best 3 out of 5, tucked under my pillow. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Grief makes you see things, doesn't it? It makes you hear voices in the quiet, makes you wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. Then came the final note. I found it in my jacket pocket, the one I hadn't worn since the night she died. I let you win. And beneath it, a single sheet of paper, folded in half, shaped like a rock. I stared at it for hours, heart pounding, knowing exactly what it meant, knowing what I had to do. I picked it up, held it in my shaking hands, and counted. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. And when I opened my eyes, she was waiting. Oh, that was so sweet, though. So that one I didn't read, and I have goosebumps. So we ended this little episode on a very good note, I feel. Oh, what do you guys think of that one? All right, you guys, so that was 12 short, scary stories from Reddit. I will have the link below in the description so you guys can read more. There are so many creative authors out there. Some of them, like the Gripsy, I think there was one by Chemical Elk. They do a lot of really, really good stories. There are hundreds, thousands, I believe. I've only barely touched the surface. But yeah, you guys should definitely check them out if you were interested. It wasn't that I wasn't a big fan of Reddit. I just am stupid and didn't know how to navigate it, but now I do. And there's an app, so you don't have to use the web browser. Anyway, hey, send me any of your short stories if you write your own, or if you guys have found short stories that you want me to read out loud. This is not me being conceited, but some people have complimented me saying that I have a very nice voice. So if you want to hear me read them, email them to me. As always, thank you so much for listening. Follow me on Spotify and YouTube. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. My email is midwestfrightpodcast@gmail.com. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.